Well, there they were in Samantha Clemens' clothing store. Samantha, people called her Sammy. Everybody had a nickname in her string. Sammy. Sammy was a woman of probably about 40 years old, maybe, and she was wearing a dress. Uh, but she was standing behind a big table where you could lay out cloth. As a matter of fact, she had bolts of cloth in there as well as clothing. It was a small store, it wasn't very big at all. But her selection didn't have to be very big. She basically had what people wanted now after the Great Awakening and change, which I'll say more about in a minute. Um, she had bolts of cloth, maybe a total of 10, maybe, uh, and various clothes hanging up. Well, uh, and some hats. Uh, Heidi saw immediately what she wanted, and she asked Peter. She said, "Husband," still loving that term. Later, it would probably become hubby, but she just loved husband. Husband, do you mind if I pick our clothes out? And what's Peter gonna say? Uh, he'd wear a ballerina's outfit if Heidi wanted him to. He was so happy right now. Uh, uh, what do you call those? I can't think what they call it. Anyway, uh, no, he said, "Sure, you go ahead. I'm not very opinionated. Clothes have always been kind of uncomfortable for me. I hate buying them." And she says, "Well, I can change that." Uh, she wanted each of them to have a pair of overalls, like farmers' overalls. That's what she wanted. And and of course, Sammy had them, lots of sizes from little kids on up. Bibbies, some they often call them bibbies. Uh, and she had them in three or four colors: brown, white, blue, and some that look like a train engineer might wear, and in different sizes. That took quite a bit. Well, uh, uh, Heidi wanted blue. She wanted blue. She loved brown, but she wanted blue, and for this, and so it wasn't. You didn't have to fit them. I mean, you know how I think you probably know how they are. Just small, medium, large adults. She had them. That was done quick. And Heidi also wanted flannel shirts. Each one of them should have a flannel shirt, one for each of them. And of course, Sammy had lots of them, uh, and she chose brown. She liked brown. So they had matching flannel shirts, matching bibbies, and uh, and uh, and it didn't take long at all. Now. Uh, Another thing that Heidi said while she was there, she noticed that there weren't very many dresses. She wanted to get a dress. Um, and Sammy, she's a little old maybe to think of Sammy, but Sammy said, "Well, I don't have very many dresses because people, some people still go into the cities to buy their clothes or online or something, but a lot of the Mennonite women, they make their own. Uh, they'll come here to buy cloth, but they just make their own dresses because they're so simple." And Heidi said, "Boy, I wish I could sew." Uh, but she said, can you make me a dress? Uh, would that take long?" And Sammy said, "No, that wouldn't take long at all. Probably 2 hours or less. I can make you a dress if you'd like one. I just don't have one on stock." And so Heidi said, "Well, yeah. Do you have a bolt of the same material that our flannel shirts are?" And she said, "Yes. I don't make those flannel shirts, but I have a bolt of that material." And Heidi said, "Well, please then, I'd like to order uh, a, a a dress. Can can it be done before the week's over?" And Samantha just laughed and she said, "You come back this afternoon and it'll be ready for you." Well, Samantha said, can it have an apron on it, like a white apron on it? Would that be hard? And of course, Sam said, no, not at all. We'll just make that detachable. Uh, so that didn't take long. Now, one of the things they got discussing was one of the reasons that it was so easy for her to have a little store like this and sell so easily was as part of the great, this is important, as part of the Great Awakening and change, people had realized that when in their clothes, they were all the time wearing advertisements. They were basically going around like a sandwich board in a way. Logos, ever since that technology changed so you could print anything you wanted on your clothes, well, that was fine, but as a result, people were advertising all the time their favorite ball teams, their favorite drink, their favorite meals, funny little sayings, images. They went around wearing advertisements, announcements, and Sammy said, well, the people in Earth's Drink were kind of ahead of the time. They were. I'll explain that later because Scott's going to end up talking a lot to his tour guide, Prof, about that. They were kind of ahead of the time, and they'd adapted that. And just as an example, she was saying, I think you two ought to have hats, like ball caps. And, just try to, so many times people have worn ball caps with something on there. Always there's a logo on there, like they belong to, I don't know, Pepsi or whatever, or some slogan. Usually it's just an emblem on the ball cap. But I've got plain ball caps. And I think each one of you ought to have one of them. I'll give them to you, she says, because she'd begun to figure out, well, she knew as soon as she saw their clothes that they were newlyweds. They were the couple that rumor had gone around the town already that there was a couple of newlyweds that were going to spend their honeymoon there. So there'll be wedding gifts for them. So here you go. What color do you want? And, Heidi looked at Peter and, what do you think, Peter? And he said, well, I don't really have an opinion, but I think white would go really well with your hair. I think I can see you in white. Me, I don't know, brown. You like brown. I'll have a brown cap. Done. All right. So they asked if they could change there. She had a changing room, and so they did. They used the changing room, and they changed, and Samantha packaged up their clothes into so they'd be kept clean and all, and they were about to leave, but then Heidi said, is there any place, looking down at her feet, is there any place in town where you can buy shoes or boots or something like that, because we've only got our fanciest shoes from the wedding. That's what we're wearing. And Samantha said, oh yes, that's easily done. You just go right up the street. You go out the door, turn left, and walk a couple of doors down, and you're going to come to New Nick's. It's called New Nick's. It's a tiny, like this, it's a tiny store that sells a limited variety of shoes and boots. He can also fix shoes and boots, that fellow. And so you go up here and you'll find some real comfortable shoes, I think. Bye for now.